I really don't understand why we're doing this to moms. We should really give them the plan on what they can start from day one, because there are a lot of things that you can start.
Hey, Mama Bear. Welcome to the Breastfeeding with Confidence podcast. Do you dream of bonding with your baby through exclusive breastfeeding, but worry about breastfeeding pain or low milk supply? Maybe you're struggling with breastfeeding and no one seems to have any answers. I'm Jaimie, doula, international board certified lactation consultant, and mom of 5, and I have been where you are. After working through painful latches, milk supply worries, and postpartum depression, and supporting countless mothers through their breastfeeding journeys for over 8 years, I'm here to tell you breastfeeding doesn't have to be perfect to be positive. Each week, I'll share breastfeeding tips to help you prevent and overcome unexpected breastfeeding challenges so you can actually enjoy bonding with your baby. If you are ready to shut out the toxic whispers of the world, embrace your God-given intuition, and release your inner fierce mama bear, grab some coffee or your favorite herbal tea and let's dive in. Welcome back to the Breastfeeding with Confidence podcast. If you are pregnant or recently had your baby and had maybe an unexpected C-section, this episode is for you. We are going to talk all about how C-section is not the easy way out, but how you can make it a little bit easier. We have Crystal with us here today. I'm so excited you are here, Crystal. Can you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what it is you do and why you do it?
Yes, thanks for having me. Hi, I'm Crystal. I'm a C-section mom of 2 myself, and I'm a physical therapist. And I was very surprised at how unprepared I was for a C-section going into my first one. I had planned for a vaginal birth, like many moms, hoping to have an unmedicated birth, but things ended up as a C-section. And being a physical therapist, I kind of expected a plan of care to be in place for recovery. And I quickly realized that we were given next to no information on how to recover, yet we're sent home with a newborn baby and this nice incision to care for. And I also didn't realize how painful those first days can be, and that moving and getting around, trying to care for my baby, how painful that could be and how much help I would actually need. So that's what inspired me to create my Empowered C-Section Recovery Program, where I guide women through their first 6 weeks of recovery so that they know how to recover better and more safely, so that they have a plan and that they set things up so that they have the support that they need.
I love that. As a mom who has had a C-section myself, I agree. I think that the first few weeks for sure, but like that first week, oh gosh, it is the most awful thing I think I've ever been through. People, like, I vaginally birthed a 10-pound baby, and people are like, oh my God, how'd you do that? And I'm like, it was a C-section, I'll tell you that. Like, C-sections are so hard. And because it's not just like, a couple hours of struggle. It's an abdominal surgery. It's serious. It's a big deal. And I know there's so many people who recover easily and beautifully, but for many of us, I remember how much I needed help going to the bathroom in the first few days. I could not even stand on my own. And never in my life did I think I would have my father helping me in the bathroom after giving birth. But it was like my husband was trying to take care of the baby and my dad had to help me to the bathroom. And I was like, what new low have I hit in life? So I love to hear that there are things moms can do to maybe prepare for that and not be so blindsided. So can you share with us a little bit about how you can prepare for a C-section, even if you're not planning to have a C-section?
Yeah. So my suggestion to make C-section recovery a little bit easier is that ideally everyone who is going to have birth should have a C-section birth preferences plan to start with. So just because you're having a C-section doesn't mean you have no options and you can't have any of your preferences honored. So that would be the first step to help you have a positive experience. Because I know when I was told I was having a C-section, I felt like, okay, that's it. The medical team decides everything from now. But no, you can still have options. And of course, it depends on the medical status of you and the baby. But often you can have things honored, such as if skin to skin is really important to you, or if immediate breastfeeding is important to you. Those are things that could potentially still happen. So what I suggest moms do is that they have their birth plan preferences for a C-section, even if it's plan B or C or D, and that they discuss that with their OB in advance so that they know what's possible at the hospital, because different hospitals, different practitioners will allow different things and have different policies. So you want to know what is like standard protocol and also what your OB is comfortable with doing so that you know. And like every other birth as well, you want to have someone advocating for you, because when you're the patient and you're in the moment, you might not be able to advocate for yourself. So make sure that your partner or the person who's supporting you, your doula, that they really know what your birth preferences are for a C-section as well.
Yeah, I think we focus so much on birth plans and kind of the perfect birth, but we don't always do that kind of plan B. I always told moms when I was working with them as a doula, like, we're going to have a plan A, and then we're gonna have a plan B and a plan C. So I love that. So if you have, you have your birth plan and everything goes well with your C-section, recovery will be a little bit easier, I think, but that's not always the case. So can you talk to moms about what they can do if maybe they do have a difficult birth and their recovery is just, we've got the physical side of things, the emotional side of things. What can they do to kind of set themselves up postpartum? Everybody kind of says you can't do anything until that 6-week mark. I know you have a kind of different philosophy on that. There are things you can do to start healing. So what does that look like?
Absolutely. I think, we are misled. We're given the impression we should do nothing for 6 weeks. We're given a list of things not to do, but we're not told what we should do. We're not even really told. We're told you can shower, but that first shower, for example, can be very intimidating. Like, okay, how do I actually go about this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, once you're faced with it, it's a whole other dilemma. And I think also the whole emotional aspect, whether it's planned or unplanned, there's an emotional aspect to it. And I think that needs to be addressed. And I think it's important to be gentle and to have people around you that will support you and that you can talk to about those things. If journaling is your thing, that's something that you can do also. But I think one of the best things you can do, and again, this is something you should probably do in advance, is plan support. So after a C-section, yes, some maybe have it, they have a nice, more easy recovery, but for the most part, those first few weeks are challenging and you will need support. So planning to have someone with you at home for at least the first 4 weeks is what I suggest, and more if you have small children with you, because you're not supposed to lift anything heavier than your baby, for example, for the first 6 weeks. Well, if you have a toddler around the house, then that's a little inevitable unless you have proper support in place. Also, I think the mindset is really important. After my first C-section, I really was excited to do all the mom things. This was my first baby. I had envisioned sort of this postpartum that I no longer could have. And that was really difficult to experience and to have to accept. And I really had to let go of sort of what I had envisioned and accept this new reality. And I didn't have help in place right away. So I had to react quickly and get my help in place so that I would be able to rest properly. So yes, you should be resting adequately in those first few weeks, because when you're sick, what do people say? Oh, I hope you rest up. And resting does help promote recovery, but also you shouldn't just be resting. You need to balance rest with proper movement. Now you want gentle movement and movement that is appropriate to your stage of healing, but you do want to start to, it's surgery. Any other surgery, like I've helped hundreds of patients with different orthopedic surgeries. They all have a pre-op and then they have a post-op plan. Yet C-section moms have no plan. We should not start rehab on week 6. We would never do that with the orthopedic surgeries, because that would just delay and potentially, lead to other symptoms and pains and chronic issues. So we would not do that. I really don't understand why we're doing this to moms. We should really give them the plan on what they can start from day one, because there are a lot of things that you can start. You should be re-engaging your muscles a little bit very gently, but the nerves were cut, the muscles were cut. You want to reactivate them so they're not kind of, 6 weeks later, they've been on holiday for 6 weeks and now you're asking them to come back. It's harder to come back when you've been off for that long.
Yeah, I love that analogy. That's kind of making a heavy situation a little funny. I like it. So what would you say, without giving everything away, some of those things you can do? I remember after my C-section, I heard so many people who were like, oh, I was up walking around the floor within a couple hours of my C-section. And I remember like, they wouldn't even let me out of the bed until 12 hours. And I don't even know why. I was begging to get up and they did not give me a good reason. Like they would not remove my catheter. They were just being frustrating. And I'm like, all these other people told me they're walking around an hour after their C-section. Here I am the next morning begging to get up and move. And then when I did, I couldn't move. And so then I'm like, oh, how am I supposed to walk? And I distinctly remember my son was about 2 weeks old. And we went to go for a walk because I was like, I've got to get out of this house. And I thought I was going to go for this big walk around the lake. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah. Like kind of like, where are the limits that you kind of have to listen to your body? When is it okay to kind of push? And what should we be doing when it comes to that?
The main thing, you said it, is listen to your body. I think that is super important. Too often we ignore what our body is telling us. So in this case, but yes, will you have pain when you're moving? Yes, you just had surgery, so there will be a little bit of pain. I try to go, I know a lot of people don't like the 0 to 10, like a scale of pain, 0 to 10, but I try to keep the pain under 2 or 3. Now, if we're talking about walking, there's a lot of things to make that you want to be careful of too. So you don't, if you're starting to get out of breath, you're feeling dizzy, that might mean that you need to sit down and take a moment. And yes, I think you need to plan less. Like, I think that was one thing I struggled with my first C-section, especially a little bit less with my second, because I had planned and prepared and I knew what to expect, but not overdoing it. Because when you're in the moment, you think you can do it, but then you pay for it afterwards. So if you go for a walk and then after you're feeling extra exhausted, then maybe you did a little too much. So I think what you need to start with is really baby steps. Like, I have sort of my hospital walking goals, where the first is just to get up and stand, then it's walking to the washroom, then it's making it out to the hallway, maybe to fill your water bottle or something like that. Then when you're home, depending if it's winter or summer and if you're able to go outside or not, but walking around the home. Or if you're walking outside, it might just be down the street. Like, same here, my first walk is like what usually I would do in 2 minutes would take me at least 10 minutes to do. And
yeah.
Like, okay, and you're out of breath. What was that?
Yeah.
So taking it and turning back before you think you should.
Not waiting until your body says to stop, to turn around.
Exactly.
Just be a step ahead. I like that.
So planning your walks too, like planning the trajectory, making sure you have somewhere to rest. And ideally the first walk's like going with someone else in case you're not feeling well, or at least having your phone where you can call someone.
Yeah.
And I don't suggest pushing a stroller for those first walks either.
Yeah.
That just add extra strain on the tummy.
That, that's an important thing to say, because I think a lot of people think, oh, I'll use it as kind of like a crutch or like to help me walk. And so it's good to know that it can actually cause more harm than help you.
Yeah. Just setting your baby up in it can cause strain on your stomach for those first days and weeks, for sure.
Yeah. Hey, Mama. Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to tell you that when I had my first baby, I really thought I was ready to breastfeed. And the truth is, I struggled, and the people I expected to help me didn't actually have the answers. That is why I created the Breastfeeding Resource Library, so you don't have to leave breastfeeding to chance. Inside, you will learn how to avoid unnecessary formula, protect your milk supply, and get a pain-free latch. You'll also learn how to fix common struggles before they become big problems. Visit littlebearlactation.com/library and use code podcast50 to save now. A common, concern about giving birth is people are worried about their pelvic floor. And I know I've heard a lot of people say like, oh, I had a C-section. I've protected my pelvic floor. My lady parts are exactly the same as they've always been. They're in pristine condition. And I always kind of think like, that's not exactly how it works. So I would love to hear your input on, even though you had a C-section, how could that impact things like constipation postpartum? That first bowel movement can kind of be scary. The feeling of everything kind of falling out, that a lot of people report after a vaginal birth, like you can still feel that after cesarean. So could you talk to that a little bit?
Oh, I think we could do a whole podcast on this, but yes, absolutely. So your body was still pregnant, you're recovering from pregnancy and from a surgery. So you're your body has gone through, and the pressures, your intra-abdominal pressures have applied extra pressure on your pelvic floor. So depending on if you had symptoms during pregnancy as well, that doesn't just necessarily all correct itself right away after you've delivered, even if you've delivered by cesarean. Now, also some moms actually labor and then have a C-section. So there can be some, trauma to the pelvic floor if there was a trial of labor as well. Constipation is actually huge after a C-section.
Yes.
Which I did not realize after my first one. I was of the mindset, I don't like taking medication unless I really have to. And I was prescribed a stool softener with other meds. And I was like, I'll just take them if I need them, which I realized after the fact was the wrong approach and caused additional pains that I did not need to be going through. So my advice now to women is take the medications. Like if you're prescribed opioids, not that one unless you really need it. But the other pain meds and stool softeners are really important to reduce pain. So what happens during surgery is that there's sort of a temporary stall on your digestive system while you're under anesthesia. And so that needs to get kickstarted again. So everything is sluggish and it causes a backlog, which is essentially constipation. So everyone is constipated after a C-section. So by taking the stool softener, it will make things a lot better. What happens if you have constipation is that, you'll be straining and that'll add pressure to your scar, your incision internally, which is also not something that's good. And that's why you'll have extra pain and you want to avoid that. And so what's important too is that often after surgery, because moving is painful, we tend not to want to move very much, which is why, again, I was mentioning that rest needs to be balanced with movement, because movement is actually one of the best things to get your digestive system going again, and that can reduce constipation. So definitely C-section moms are not in the clear for constipation. It's actually a very common symptom after surgery.
So everything I'm hearing is that C-section is not the easy way out.
Oh gosh, no, absolutely not. Like if there's anything easy about it, and this is not for everyone, like the actual procedure itself, it was like, my first one was fine. Like that went very nicely. It was like 30 minutes or 45 minutes. Things were done, but it's the after that is so not easy.
Yeah.
And my second C-section, I actually had trouble breathing during the C-section because of the anesthesia. And I was shaking. So that was not easy.
Yeah.
I know there's nothing easy.
I always say when it comes to birth and postpartum, there's no right answer. It's pick your hard. It's going to be hard either way. It's pick your hard. Sometimes you don't have much of a choice. But still, the point is, it's like you're treating some hard things for other hard things. There is no easy way out.
Yeah.
There is no easy way out. No, there's not.
It's all worth it in the end, but it's definitely not easy. And what I find interesting is as the years go by, it becomes more of a distant memory and you forget how difficult it was unless you talk about it like this.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. Because it's not till I remember right after my C-section just being so consumed with how difficult it was for a very long time. I mean, like years. And now that it's been 10 years, I can talk about it. And it's like, I can talk about it so much more removed from the emotion. And I think for anybody listening, that's really important to hear, that it feels really big right now if you do have that emotional side. But I don't want to say like that it's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things, but like with time and healing, like you can heal through motherhood, through breastfeeding, your breastfeeding journey, through other ways of bonding with your baby. There are so many ways that you can heal emotionally, and it does eventually not feel so all-consuming.
Absolutely. And sometimes having a more positive subsequent birth helps to heal that first birth as well.
Absolutely.
You were talking about the sort of the prolapse is what you were referring to.
Yeah.
Things heavy. You know what's interesting with the C-section? So you're not, you can't escape that necessarily either because of the pressure that you had on your pelvic floor during pregnancy. But not only that, when you have a C-section, often they will actually exteriorize your uterus to clean it out. So that means they're kind of like taking your uterus a little bit out of your body so that they make sure there's no debris left. But you have ligaments that attach from your uterus to your sacrum. And so if there's any stretching, like we're hoping that they're being gentle and that everything's fine, but potentially if there's anything that was tugged on a little too hard for whatever reason, then there could be issues there where it does lead to a little bit of a descent of the uterus, of your organs.
Yeah. And what is your perspective on how adhesions can impact things like bowel movements and
Oh God.
the pelvic floor? I know the answer.
Absolutely. Like, scar tissue is fabulous. We want scar tissue, but what happens is scar tissue, when you heal, it's very sticky, it's very strong, it's actually like tougher than what your usual tissues are like. So that's why it's important actually to have early movement and the right movements, and in a gentle progressive way, because you want to teach those new tissues, that scar tissue, where they need to move, because otherwise they'll be really tight and sticky, and if you don't work them, they can lead to problems, which, if there's not a lot of actual scientific proof, to prove that this happens. But personally, I can say that I've
Well,
felt
how
it.
on earth would you do that study? Like that just, oh my goodness, that sounds invasive. But I
Yeah.
completely agree. My mom had a lot of abdominal surgeries, not C-sections, but other stuff. And I finally had to tell her, like, between the scar tissue and just the impact to your pelvic floor, like that's what all these other issues are related to. And continuing to go in and do exploratory surgery to figure out what the problem is making it worse.
Yes. Yeah. Going to remove adhesions causes more adhesions. So you don't necessarily want to do that. And I
Yeah.
had a really tight scar. Like, my OB was like, "Oh, you're a scarer." And I'm like, "Oh, great. Like, I'm happy my body makes good scars, but I also need to make sure that I'm mobilizing them." And that happened, you need to do that early on. Like, it's better to do early on. It's not that you can't do it later, but it can be more difficult later on and you need to work at it harder. But those first 6 weeks are really crucial at teaching your body how to move again and to get those tissues gliding in the right ways and to reduce sort of that stiff tension that's on them. So doing the right exercises, and also when you can start doing massage, which is after 6 weeks, that you should do. But there's also like desensitization techniques that you can start doing before 6 weeks, where that can kind of help stimulate the nerves that were cut and improve the sensation and numbness that you're feeling, and just make those connections happen quicker.
Yeah. So everything that I'm hearing is you could be planning a C-section, not planning a C-section, but in order to have a better postpartum, in case you do have a C-section, expected or unexpected, you should have a plan for what you would like a C-section to look like, and then have an understanding that you're probably not going to get the guidance you need on how to properly heal your body. So if you do have a C-section, even if you're not planning it, if you're listening and you're pregnant and you're not planning a C-section, keep in the back of your head that if you have one, you should be seeking out somebody who can help you heal, who is specialized in healing specifically from C-section, which is you. So where can people find you to learn more about how they can heal from a planned or unplanned C-section?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, C-section physio, and you can check out my website, csectionphysio.com. And I have a free guide also available if moms want to plan their C-section birth plan. So I do go through sort of the different options that you can have for a C-section birth.
That's great. We'll link that in the show notes so that everybody can grab that. I have enjoyed this conversation so much. Is there anything else you want to leave moms with to make sure that if they take away one thing from this conversation, what is the one thing you want them to take away?
Oh, just one? That's so hard. I think the one thing really is, like, what would have been game changer for me is to have a plan. No matter what you're planning for your birth, have a C-section plan just in case. Have that in your back pocket. Bring it to your birth. Make sure people know about and the thing is, I didn't want to read about the C-section stuff, and I didn't want to have a plan because I didn't want to call it into existence.
That's right. No, that's a real thing. And I want to talk about that real quick, because even though I doubt either of us are experts on any of that, I 100% was the same. Like, I was like, I'm just not even actually going to talk about this because I don't want to like make it happen. So I had a C-section because my son flipped breech at 39 weeks, and they just kind of went, all right, you're having a C-section in 2 days. Like, there was no conversation, anything. So it wasn't an emergency, but I was kind of blindsided. But about a week and a half before that, I was asleep on the couch. And you know, when you're kind of asleep, but you can hear what's going on around you? I could hear, I
Mhm.
was watching like one of those reality shows, and they were talking about how, like, oh, it's an emergency C-section because the baby flipped breech. And I'm like hearing this. And I just kept obsessing over it. I was like, I don't want that to be, oh my God, that's going to be me. I don't want that to be me. I don't want that to be me. And I like woke up from this weird dream state and was like, I'm so afraid now that that's going to happen to me. And it played over in my head for the next week. And then I went and they told me I had a breech baby. And I'm like, did I make that happen? Because I kept saying I was afraid of it.
Right?
Looking back, I know that is not how it works. I believe I understand why he was breached. And so I always think there's a reason, like, you're going to have the birth you need, not the birth you want. And that's not always easy to hear, but that there is something beautiful to be found in every birth. And
It really is.
I want to say that to anybody who did have an unexpected C-section or might end up with an unexpected C-section. Like, I think that was some of the lowest point in my life, because it was like unexpected C-section, breastfeeding struggles. Like, how do I even overcome this? Because I didn't have anybody like you to tell me how to start healing. I didn't have anyone like me to help me get answers. I was just being brushed off by these doctors that were kind of like, okay, you're stitched up now. Your incision looks great. Have a great day. And that's it.
Exactly. Like, I don't think anyone, like, rarely does someone want to have a C-section. There are some cases where an elective C-section is appropriate, but for the most part, people don't want to have major abdominal surgery. So
Yeah.
that's why you think, well, why would I prepare? And you don't think you have options to prepare for, or
Yeah.
think we should, like, we're not told we have things to prepare for that
Yeah.
can make our life a lot easier. And, really, for my second C-section, having planned and prepared support, I really took the approach of like, I know we talk a lot about the golden hour, which my golden hours were kind of robbed because of the C-section, but it's okay. I did my golden hours after and I bonded and that was fine. But with my second C-section, I took the approach of the golden month, where I was like, this is time for me to be pampered and recovered and to heal with my baby and bond with my baby. And having that mindset just made it, like, I think back to my experience, and it was beautiful. Although I wanted a VBAC, I didn't get my VBAC. I had a C-section, but my recovery was very positive. It was
I
beautiful.
love that. I love that. And I always tell moms, at the end of the day, there's so much power in knowing your options. Maybe you don't have full control over everything, but knowing your options and not just handing all the decision-making authority over to somebody else really makes a big, big difference, I think.
Absolutely, because it gives you somewhat of a sense of control.
Yeah.
Like, we all like to have our independence to a certain point and make decisions. So to feel like you can even have a little bit of that goes a
Yeah.
long way.
Yeah. Well, I love that you are out here telling moms that they do have options with C-sections. Having a
Yes,
C-section does not mean, and this is honestly, I feel like this is still so new. Like, there are still places that are like, you're being strapped down and you will not see your baby and all of the things. And then there's places that are like, we'll do some weird middle ground and make it work. And then we've got these like amazing mother assisted cesareans. I
I
don't know if you've
know.
seen that. Like,
Oh, I
I
have.
tell everybody,
That's not available here, but that's in
if I
Toronto.
ever need a cesarean, it will be mother assisted and I will make it happen. I will fight that doctor till they agree.
Absolutely.
Because, like,
Why
I think that is
not?
the most amazing thing. So to see that there are options and just learn how to advocate for them and find what is important to you. If you can find that one or two things that is really important to you and focus on that, I think it really makes a big difference.
I 100% agree.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. If anybody is listening and wants to make sure that they are prepared for every possible outcome for their birth, or you just had a C-section and you're like, oh, there's things I can do to help my healing, go check out Crystal's website. I will link all her information in the show notes and go get the help you deserve. All right. All right, Mama Bear, that is a wrap for today. If this episode helped you feel a little more confident or a little more prepared for breastfeeding, can I ask you a quick favor? Go ahead and leave me a review. It helps other moms find this podcast and join us in this amazing community of fierce and confident Mama Bears. And hey, if you know a friend who could use some encouragement or real talk about pregnancy, breastfeeding, and all things motherhood, share this episode with her. You've got this, Mama Bear. Trust your instincts, stay fierce, and I'll catch you in the next episode.